Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Reclaim You. Casey.
Hi.
I'm just like saying your name randomly.
That's me. Hey.
Hi. So, money and trauma. That's where we're going today.
Yeah. I think it's important to, obviously last week we just kind of gave a gist of why we thought it was important to talk about this topic, but being that, we do a lot of our work around trauma, whether it's attachment, whether it's situational, whether it's, complex PTSD, but how much money either can be a cause to trauma or whether it can further the difficulty of healing. And I think it's just a means of, again, like I said in the last podcast, a little bit more compassion for your circumstances surrounding money, your fear about money, shame around money, etc., etc.
Intergenerational trauma, too, right?
Yeah.
How it can get really passed down through and how patterns can show up in life and manifest in the way that you look or feel or interact with money.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think it can get really overwhelming when you look at all of the nitty gritty of it, right? There's attachment, there's, means of making money, there's, situations and feelings about yourself because of how much money you have. But I think the thing that I always start with in talking to clients about money and who have a history of trauma is lack of money or poverty is inherently traumatic.
Yes.
Because it takes away choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you take it from that umbrella understanding, you can start to break it down slowly, right? Well, why would lack of choice connect to trauma? Well, psychoeducation for everybody, right? Trauma is not the event itself, but it's the way that our nervous system responds. So when you don't have choice and you're forced to do something or act in a certain way or not act in a certain way, that's our body not being able to do what it needs to do to feel safe. And when you put that in the context of the world we live in, you need money to function. You need money to survive. You need money to feel safe. So that can look like having to choose between two needs. It can be having to choose between a want and a need. It can be, not being able to provide for your children in the ways that you need or would like to. It can be, the desperate nature of finding a job. And that job either being dangerous or not making you happy or being abusive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like I could go on and on about the ways that that could umbrella out. But I think if you take that over time, right, you've accumulated all of these beliefs about money, beliefs about yourself in regards to money, what you understand money to be. So our 3 questions that we left you guys with last time. And that then impacting the way that you look at money in the future when you might have more choice, or maybe you don't. And that can kind of impact the way that you look at it there too.
Yeah. As you were saying that, I was thinking about how I was thinking, like, was that a podcast or was it Love is Blind? Which feels like a pretty vast difference.
It depends. It depends on whose podcast you're listening to.
It might have been Love is Blind because I've been watching a lot of that lately. I'm away on a training. Nights are long. Love is Blind helps. But anyway, one of the men, I'm pretty sure it was Love is Blind. One of the men was talking about growing up, and he always had something to eat. And his mom, who was, she'd work during the day, she'd come home, and then she'd go to work at night. And when she'd come home to make dinner, she'd always make sure he had something to eat. And she'd say, like, I'm just not hungry. But he had this like knowing deep inside, like, yes, she is hungry, but we don't have what we need. So like there's this like double, I don't know, the double whammy there of this denying of need from mom. I'm taking care of my baby, right? I'm doing what I should, quote unquote, do. And this deep, like, oh my goodness, she's suffering from this end. So do we like it can come together in these really big ways that, like, yeah, and just like breezing by it, it's like, oh yeah, that really sucks. But if we think about the impact on both of those humans' nervous systems over time for a number of years, like, how profound is that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it takes me back to moments in my childhood where, my mom tried her best to make sure that I assumed that we were okay, but there were those moments, right, where like your forced parentified part just comes forward and feels so much worry and concern and guilt and shame.
And who am I to take the resources when you're suffering so deeply too? Like, those aren't the words that kids
Totally.
have, but similar to that, right?
Oh my God. And the attachment between
Yeah.
parent and child, right, that just adds to this wound. And then if you see people, I almost like zoom out of that scenario, right? And if we're looking at the trajectory of both of their lives, right, those are very profound.
Yes, it is. And not to make light of it, but like this
I
is
was,
one of this is one of
I
the
was about to
dudes
say
that
that.
like you could see, some of the wounding playing out now as I'm watching Instagram and getting all the spoilers.
Yes.
I won't give a spoiler alert because the final episode hasn't happened yet.
Oh, see, we don't do that here. We don't give spoilers.
Yeah.
That's
But
fair.
it's true. Like the ripples of the traumatization, right? The ripples of the overwhelm and the guilt, they're real and they impact going forward relationships and relationship with self and relationship with things and all the ways.
Totally. And I mean, I'm just kind of thinking about, I always talk about capitalism and yada, yada, yada. You know my spiel.
I don't know if everyone does know your spiel though. Have you said the spiel?
I mean, we might need a whole episode for that.
I think we do need a whole. Let's not give the spiel. Let's do the next episode on capitalism.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do macro lens capitalism in
Yeah.
America.
Yeah. You can give like a headline and then say what you're going to say. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. So there's the future episode. But I'm also thinking about like cultural ramifications of this and how that comes to play out, right? Like if you're thinking about immigrants or refugees or, first or second or third generation individuals who reside here and, their relationship with money from one culture to the next, how they implement that onto their family, and that impacting attachment too, and just your sense of the world. I can think of so many people in my professional or personal life who always say like, well, my mom, XYZ, right, in regards to money, or, I look at the world and I look at certain people who have money or don't have money, and that causes my bias or judgment to come through, right? So a lot of people can overcompensate after coming out of poverty too, where like they never want to go back to a time where, they ever have to experience the pain that comes from that. And really, I think to a point, I don't know if this is final in my understanding of it, but it is avoidance to a certain extent, right? It's a survival skill, but not processing the impact of that, right, then comes through with these, you can't see those parts of me, right? Because my protector parts are out so furiously.
Yeah.
Which I get.
Yeah, totally. Understandable. Good reason for the protector parts to be out so furiously, right? So I never have to experience that suffering again.
Exactly. I don't know why. It might be because of the time of day we're doing this, or we just started talking about capitalism. And there's a company that has 2-day delivery and starts with an A.
You mean like my best friend? Is this what we're talking about?
Like some people's best friends or whatever.
It's A or T? A or T? I don't know. Which one has most of my money? I'm not sure. Speaking of money.
It's a crapshoot. I have talked about W before as well.
Yeah.
But we've kind of moved on past W. But A in particular, trying to be crafty here. But, it made me think of, the point that I was talking about before of people having to make decisions about a job that are inherently traumatic or abusive or coercive or toxic. Going back to our podcast, I don't know, a year ago about toxic workplaces, that I saw a video, I don't know, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, about a woman who was living in her car working an egg. And I was like, what? And to just think like that happens, that exists, right? People use this and they make billions of dollars every year, and someone is living in their car.
Yeah.
So the loneliness, the isolation that comes from poverty, and I think society really not understanding the impact and the prevalence of poverty, right? Because there's different levels of poverty.
Yeah.
And I think, just it's an invitation for us all to be aware of our biases and stereotypes, that poverty does not just equal homelessness.
Yeah.
And homelessness is not just living on the street, right? And to be able to understand that just because someone has a job does not mean it's easy to live within those means.
Right.
And I think that's the strongest misunderstanding in at least America. And I think it's a very dangerous one, and one that I think social media feeds off of and society feeds off of, and it leaves people feeling a lot of shame
Mhm.
and like a deep shame, like a wrongness of themselves.
Yes. Yes.
Which, if we feel that shame belief, let's connect it to trauma, right? That it's a implicit memory, a
Mhm.
feeling, and so that can come up in many different other places besides money. And it's the lens that we could look at life. So it's potentially very, very, very damaging
Yeah.
to that person's sense of self.
And it's making me think about all of the power dynamics that are just inherently there in money, especially in America, right? Thinking about when you said toxic workplaces, it brought me back to how things kind of played out for me with money was in order to like keep me as a social worker. So we're both social workers, Casey and I, right? We graduated. If you haven't listened to those episodes, too long, don't read, listen. Like we were making peanuts, right? Because we're social workers. Social workers do not make a lot of money, which is unfortunate. We could do a whole thing. Anyway, making peanuts, right? And as agencies do, there's like waves of people leaving all the time. People leaving because it's toxic, it's abusive. And I got stuck in this situation where every time I tried to leave, I was thrown more money, thrown more money,
Mm,
thrown more money, right? Which at the time I was like, well, sweet, like now I'm actually making money. I can buy a house. This is
right.
cool, right? And then I was suffering, suffering, suffering. Went to leave, more money, right? Suffering, suffering, suffering. Went to leave, more money. And so we used to call it the golden handcuffs,
Yes.
where you're finally making something that you have wiggle room, right? Which is something that I don't know that I experienced a lot of in my entire life. There was wiggle room and it felt really good, but there was so much on the other side of that. So I was playing into this awful dynamic of then, like, because I'm making this money, I was expected to be working all the time, right? And there was always this threat of it being taken away. So, like, it's replaying and hitting old triggers, and it was just super yucky. And then having to leave, having to take a massive pay cut because I was going back to just a regular social worker job, you
Mm,
know? And this is a power differential that can happen in a lot of workplaces. And I don't know outside of the social worker mental health field. I imagine it happens because money is just, can be used to be yucky and manipulative and all of those things. But I can't quite remember where I was going with that at this point, but it felt like it connected somewhere. I'm sure you can make a connection.
no, it did, though. It did, because I think that's another, I think part of the trauma that comes is a lot of shame beliefs that develop because of stereotypes and
Yes.
biases, right? So the idea of golden handcuffs is something that I talk about with clients a lot, especially younger clients, because they get out of college, right? Which college in and of itself traumatic with money and all kinds of things. Um, right. So you're desperate. You're desperate. You're afraid. You have 6 months to defer your loans until they're piling at your door.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting back into real life. Like, oh, shit, like, I don't get to go to like the meal hall. I don't get to like just
Yeah.
live in a dorm. It's like, now I have to figure out what to do with my life.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's been a decade since I've graduated college at least. And it was, I think I probably applied to 60 jobs my first year, and I got one acceptance. Like buying a house.
I mean, that was better than buying a house for
Honestly,
you.
it was. It was. I'll be frank, it was. But that job, you have no idea what it is. You're just,
You're like, yeah, I'm going to get paid.
I'm going to get paid.
Right.
It's better
Yeah.
than my pizza shop job
Right.
that was getting paid under the table.
Right. I don't have to
So,
be a bartender anymore. Cool.
yeah, it was
Even
a
though you could probably
relief.
make more money being a bartender, but whatever.
Isn't that's the
Yeah.
sickest part of it,
Yeah.
though,
Yeah.
right? Is like these environments where, you have a lot of like your sleep schedule's messed up and all that kind of stuff. It's like we're taught in America, at least, that the 9 to 5 is the piece de resistance, right? That's what you should aspire to. And it isn't 9 to 5 anymore.
No.
It's 8 to 7. It's
Yep.
on call. But you make all these life decisions very early on with this relief, right? That wiggle room that you were talking about of like, I can breathe
I can
now.
breathe.
I can get that, car. I can get that, better health insurance. I can get
Yeah.
whatever. And now I can't leave.
I can buy the name brand cereal.
And
Right.
brand cereal. Yes. But we're not taught back then that
Mhm.
you go to look at the coupons and you can still get the name brand for just as much. I digress. But the lack of education we get surrounding our autonomy and resiliency surrounding money because it's the society we live in. You make choices like that you can't undo easily. I mean, people buy houses and buy cars and like things where like if you're to do that, you're just trading a stressor for another.
Yes.
And that's why it's inherently dramatic, right? Is you don't get a lot of choice in that and you suffer. That's why burnout is very high. It's here's society telling you need all these things to be enough. And then you have these jobs saying, well, I'll give you enough to be enough, but you got to do this for me.
Right. But you have to give me your soul. Yeah.
So you're giving
Yeah.
your soul
Yeah.
for a Stanley Cup. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it's like, you can't undo it now. I mean,
Right.
you can, but it
That's what
takes a
therapy's
lot of
for.
work. That's what therapy's for. And taking very small steps. So, yeah.
Just like thinking about that wiggle room, right? Like the exhale of, gosh, yeah, I'm not so like braced. I'm not so on edge that, I'm going to be short on this, or I won't be able to, fill up my gas tank all the way, or whatever it is. There is an enormous relief. And so, of course, we cling to that. So it's a whole new brace, right? Like you're saying, it's a whole new brace for like, I need to cling to the wiggle room. I need this to survive. Like we know we don't need it to survive, but we're, many of us, I won't say all of us, many of us are used to having to brace to survive, right? So it becomes a very similar pattern.
Very true. I mean, the golden handcuffs you can add like credit cards and personal loans and, all of that kind of stuff where you have that relief. I don't know what it was. Some ad that I saw that was like something about like a husband was supposed to bring home diapers, and he brought home something else. And she was like, oh, I guess we have to like use this app that basically gives you, I don't know, $100 on 159% APR or something like that. And I was like, my God, like the fact that these commercials exist,
They even exist.
they're predatory. And, just the idea of that, the golden handcuffs, everything is predatory, that banks and different places are taking advantage of that relief, that wanting to no longer have to brace ourselves.
Yeah.
And that, a lot of people are one paycheck away from losing it all.
Right.
And that's inherently dramatic, right? You're
Of course.
bracing for impact, right?
Yes.
God forbid the car breaks down. God forbid
the roof
my
leaks.
kid is sick. Right.
Yeah.
And I think most people live like that. And I hope that if you do and you're listening out there, that like you're not abnormal.
Right.
And it's if you have reactions to money or risk, that makes total sense.
It does. It does.
Oh, I feel like I just spoke a marathon.
An important marathon.
An important marathon.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that in these episodes, you just hear some of your experience. That's all. Because I wish so deeply that we could have heard things like this growing up. And not have to wait until, I don't know, I'm speaking for myself, in your mid-20s and first having a conversation about money. Like that would be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think with money stuff, there is this very cognitive side of like understanding your money, looking at your money, understanding why you're not looking at your money, and strategizing, right? There's some strategy that can go into money. And like to get to that place, I think takes a lot of work because again, you have to look at it and you have to understand where your money stuff is like getting in the way, and we can see how money stuff gets in the way. And then there's the other side of it of like doing the work to kind of renegotiate all of that kind of stuff so that you can effectively use your money as a tool like you spoke about last week, no matter how much you have. Maybe it's like $20 extra a paycheck, right? Like how can that $20 be a tool? Maybe it's $15, whatever it is. Maybe it's like $2,000. Like that's cool. How can you use that as a tool? So I think there is that heady side of things that we often have to do the other kind of work to be able to do that super effectively, or as effectively as you feel like doing it, right? There's no right or wrong. And I think a lot of it is looking at patterns and when you're feeling really impulsy around purchases. And again, like our culture is designed to do this, right? With the swipe up on all the reels and shit,
TikTok shop.
Yeah, TikTok shop, all of the things. It's really easy to get really impulsy with money. But when you can back up a little bit, give it some space and just get curious about like what's going on here, what other needs are present, what patterns am I playing into, right? You can get a little bit more perspective.
Yeah. And to go and add compassion to that understanding, you can't make good decisions or align decisions when you're responding in a nervous system activated way, right? So those impulse purchases, the getting the loan, the taking the job that feels yucky, they're all responses to the nervous system, right?
Mhm.
So in neurobiology, like your prefrontal cortex is not
Gets
working.
a little glitchy.
It gets a little
Mine gets a little glitchy. Yeah.
And so judgment, critical thinking, right? All of the things where you can reference the other side of your brain, it just doesn't work. And so why obviously we believe that therapy is helpful in this is you can start to get curious about how you respond to various money triggers. That way, curiosity allows you to have some dual awareness, and then you can come back into yourself and the prefrontal cortex goes back online. And then you can listen to the podcast about making your money work for you, whatever bullshit that is.
Yeah. All the cajillions of podcasts out there that talk about that.
But it's about order of
Mhm.
support
To
that
get
is
there.
very important.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing. If you're using your money to like buy things, like, okay, cool. I hope you enjoy the shit out of those things. Because
Totally.
if not, like, let's be curious about that pattern, right?
Right.
Are the
Exactly.
things you're buying, giving yourself, giving other people, whatever it is, are they bringing you joy?
Yes. Or are you keeping yourself from joy for fear of impending doom?
Yeah.
I tended to fall on that side of the coin.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, we can't buy that. That's like
Yeah.
that's too much. We can't go out to eat that. Like, it's only for special occasions.
It's only for special occasions. Yeah.
But I think also that fear can keep us from living life.
Yeah. It can certainly go both ways. I fall on the other end of like being a little impulsy, right? Yeah. Because it's like this desire, this longing to experience the like, I don't know, settledness that comes along with something, the enjoyment that comes along with something. But if it's not if that's not what's going to bring it to you, it's always going to fall flat. So you're going to keep looking.
Right. But it's, items as well as many other things. Eating disorders are the same way, right? So I think it's whatever you're doing is okay.
100%.
Right? Because it's working for you right now in some way. But
maybe
if you
not in all the ways, but in some way, right?
If you're getting some sort of tinge of or futures looking or you just get that instinctual feeling that something might feel a little off, maybe therapy would be a good idea.
Maybe.
Or maybe just talking to somebody that feels safe. That's also a good start.
Yeah, it's making me think of just like the binge restrict cycle, which we can come back to, but in the money talk, right? I mean, it can show up in food, right? In like overstocking, oversupplying, because you were so insecure with food or with money or whatever, making sure you have enough for the next like 3 years, right? We've certainly seen that before. I mean, we're not talking doomsday prepping. We're talking insecurity backlash, where that feels comforting to have that much to look at. But if you're not looking at it and taking it in that the things are different now than they were then, right? It just kind of falls and you keep going and you keep going. Where same thing with eating disorders, like oftentimes people are like watching the Food Network and watching people eat an abundance of food or again, stocking their freezers, but they're not allowing themselves to eat the food, right? Or, they're binging and like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? I overdid it, whatever. And now I'm restricting, right? All of these things are similar patterns that people play into. And like I've certainly played into too,
Totally. Because all of the things, right, whether it's food, whether it's money, whether it's relationships, whether it's video games, self-harm, whatever it is, it's all a symptom of what's happening inside.
Yeah.
And when we start to just notice it without some judgment, and even if we have some judgment, getting compassionate about the judgment, that it makes a world of difference if we just take it moment by moment.
Yeah. Anything else you feel like you should add? We should add that we're missing?
I think this topic's going to obviously come up in future episodes, but I think realizing that at the end of the day, money increases choice. And if we don't have it or we struggle with it, we respond in activated ways. So if you feel like you want to run away from money, you want to impulse buy, you want to bury your head in the sand and never look at your statements, you don't want to buy things because you are scared of running out of money, whatever it is. It's a response to something that you've experienced. And that's very, very, very valid. And if we just look at our decisions around money and the responses as like, that's a memory showing up. That's, something that's happened before. That gives you that wiggle room then maybe you don't need golden handcuffs.
And I will add in that if people inherited a lot of money or have a lot of intergenerational money or something, and if there is this belief, or if it was even explicit, or if there's some implicit something that you're not deserving of that because you didn't quote unquote earn it, or whatever it is, right? It's a lot of different problems, but it still can connect back to this deep layer of shame that can permeate throughout your entire life, right? That you're not deserving, that you don't do enough, that you're not good enough because you didn't earn. There's other ways that this show up too. So I just wanted to add that in case anyone would resonate with that. All right. Well, hey, thanks, Casey.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah. You have a pumpkin on your sweatshirt?
I do.
I love it.
Yeah, spooky season.
So good.
With the green nails,
Oh, I love
Halloween.
it. Little known fact about Casey, she does her nails once a week, every week. Is it okay that everyone in the world knows that?
It's totally okay. You probably notice it in the videos that they're a different color every time.
Yeah, I'm so impressed by that. I love it. I think it's great.
It's
I love
my
the green.
frugal decision, speaking of money.
I love it. All right, everyone. Next week, we're going to come back. We're going to talk more about capitalism. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I know.
I might actually, prep.
Okay, yeah, me too. I mean, also no guarantees.
We're gonna see what happens. We're gonna see what the week brings us, and we're gonna respond compassionately accordingly.
Yeah, listen to some capitalism podcasts on the way home, maybe tomorrow. Have some 5 hours to kill.
History of America.
Yeah, it feels like it might put me to sleep, honestly.
I was about to say, you really shouldn't look at American economics on the way home.
It'll be whole system shut down.
Yeah, we don't want a car accident.
No, let's not.
I want to see you.
I know. Maybe I'll listen to some podcasts about Love is Blind because this season was cringe.
See, you might have some tea podcast,
Oh my gosh, it was cringe.
That's a better choice.
Agreed.
Okay.
Whole different type of activation.
You listen to those, and
okay,
we're gonna be fine.
And we'll meet in the middle. Well, it might be a little lopsided, but such is life.
Neither here nor there.
All right, everybody. We'll be back next week. And until then, take good care.